The warning came without sound. Deep in the command chamber of the Imperial Defense Network, a red light began to flash. Officers stopped speaking. Screens shifted from maps of trade routes to a single bright signal near the outer border of the Empire. It was not a normal signal. It did not match any known engine pattern. It did not carry a fleet code. It was small, too small. The officer on duty leaned forward and whispered, "Human origin confirmed." The word human moved across the room like a cold wind. The Galactic Empire had watched Earth for years. They knew humans were growing fast. They knew humans were clever. But they also believed humans were reckless and proud. If a human signal appeared at the border, it meant only one thing: war. Within minutes, command ships powered up. Massive battle cruisers left their docks. Weapons charged. Thousands of Imperial ships formed a wall of steel between the unknown signal and the inner systems of the Empire. They expected to see a human armada jump into view at any second. They expected hundreds of ships. They expected a challenge. Instead, space folded once, quietly, and a single human vessel slipped out of hyperspace. It was small compared to the Imperial warships. Its shape was simple, almost smooth, without heavy armor plates or visible cannons. It did not glow with shield energy. It did not deploy fighters. It simply floated there, alone, facing an entire fleet built for destruction. Silence filled the command deck of the Imperial flagship. The Grand Admiral narrowed his eyes. "Scan it," he ordered. Long beams of light and invisible waves washed over the human ship. The scanners searched for weapons, shield systems, engine output, crew numbers. The results made no sense. Energy readings were unstable. Mass readings shifted every second. Internal structure could not be mapped. It was as if the ship was there and not there at the same time. "Is it damaged?" one officer asked. "No," the science commander replied slowly. "It is stable, but our instruments cannot measure it correctly." The admiral felt irritation rise in his chest. One small ship, no support, no defensive formation. It looked almost peaceful. "Open communication," he said. A single face appeared on the main screen. A human. Male. Calm. He sat in a simple command chair. Behind him, the bridge looked quiet and empty. No crew moved in the background. No alarm sounded. The man held a small metal cup in his hand and took a slow drink before speaking. "Greetings," he said in clear, steady basic. "I am Captain Elias Ward of Earth. I request peaceful dialogue." The officers on the flagship exchanged looks. Peaceful dialogue? After appearing at the border without notice? The admiral's voice was cold. "You approach Imperial space with no escort and no explanation. Where is the rest of your fleet?" The human captain smiled slightly. "There is no fleet." A low murmur spread through the command deck. The admiral leaned forward. "You expect us to believe Earth would send a single vessel into our territory?" "Yes," Captain Ward replied calmly. "One ship is sufficient." The admiral interpreted that as arrogance. He gave a silent signal to his tactical officers. Weapons across the Imperial line powered up, targeting solutions locking onto the lone human craft. The human ship did not react. No shields raised. No weapons armed. It simply remained still, like a stone in a storm. "Power levels unchanged," the tactical officer reported. "They are not preparing to fight." The admiral's patience ended. "Disable their engines. Boarding teams will secure the vessel." Bright beams of controlled energy fired from 3 Imperial cruisers. The beams struck the human ship directly. Light covered it for a moment. When the glow faded, the ship was still there. Undamaged. No scorch marks. No shield flare. It was as if the attack had passed through empty space. Shock moved across the bridge. "Impossible," someone whispered. "Did they activate a shield?" "Negative," the tactical officer said, confusion clear in his voice. "No shield signature detected." Before the admiral could speak again, the human captain's image returned to the screen. His expression had not changed. "Please," he said softly, "do not make this difficult." The simple words carried no threat, yet they felt heavy. The admiral refused to show uncertainty. "Prepare boarding vessels," he commanded. Small assault craft launched from the Imperial fleet, and moved toward the human ship. They attached to its hull without resistance. Entry teams reported successful docking. For a few seconds, everything seemed normal. Then the first strange report came. Interior corridors secured. A soldier said over the channel, "Gravity feels unstable." Static interrupted the message. Another voice followed. "Sensors malfunctioning. Layout does not match external scans." The Admiral frowned. "Clarify." It was a long pause. Then a final transmission reached the flagship, weak and distorted. "This is not a normal vessel." "Repeat, this is not." The signal cut. All boarding teams went silent at once. No explosions. No hull damage. No escape pods. They were simply gone. The human ship still floated in the same position, surrounded by an entire Imperial war fleet. Inside the command chamber, even the proudest officers felt unease creep into their thoughts. The Admiral stared at the calm, human face on the screen. Captain Ward lifted his cup again, as if nothing unusual had happened. "I did warn you," he said gently. Outside, thousands of Imperial cannons remained locked on target. Inside the small human vessel, no alarms rang, no weapons activated, and yet an entire boarding force had vanished without a trace. For the first time since the Empire began its expansion across the stars, its leaders faced something they could not measure, could not understand, and could not control. And the most terrifying part was this. The human ship had still not activated a single weapon. The silence after the boarding teams vanished lasted only a few seconds, but inside the Imperial flagship, it felt much longer. No one spoke. Officers stared at their consoles, waiting for emergency signals, escape beacons, or even debris. Nothing appeared. The small human vessel remained perfectly still in the center of the fleet formation. Its lights did not flicker. Its engines did not charge. It behaved as if nothing had happened. The Grand Admiral slowly turned toward the communications officer. "Attempt contact with the boarding parties." The officer obeyed immediately. Multiple channels opened at once. Names were called. Identification codes were transmitted. Only static returned. Then a faint sound came through one frequency. A breathing sound, weak and uneven. "We have one signal," the officer said quickly. The entire command deck focused on the audio feed. A soldier's voice emerged, shaking and confused. "This is Lieutenant Caro. I do not know where we are." The Admiral stepped closer to the console. "Report your location." A long pause followed. "We entered the corridor," the soldier said. But the corridor kept extending. "We walked for 10 minutes, but never reached the door." Our scanners showed the ship growing larger around us. Several officers exchanged worried looks. Ships did not grow internally. That violated basic spatial physics. The soldier continued. "Gravity changed direction twice. Walls moved when we were not looking at them. Sergeant Rell kept seeing another team walking beside us, but there was no one there." The voice trembled more with each word. "We tried to return to the airlock, but it was gone." The science commander began recording every detail. The Admiral's expression hardened. "Maintain formation and await extraction." The soldier gave a quiet laugh, filled with fear. "We try to stay together, sir." But people kept disappearing. Static burst across the channel. For a moment, it seemed the signal would die again. Then the soldier spoke once more, much softer. "I saw myself." A chill spread across the command deck. "Clarify," the Admiral ordered. "I turned a corner and saw another me standing there," the lieutenant said. "Older. Injured. He told me we should not have boarded. He said the ship is not a ship." The breathing became rapid. "He knew things I have not done yet." The channel crackled violently. A distant echo followed the soldier's words, repeating them a second later, as if the transmission itself had become lost in time. Then came the final message. "Tell the fleet, do not enter. It is waiting." The signal vanished completely. No trace of the lieutenant remained on scanners. No life sign, no body. The Imperial flagship fell into deep silence again. Even veteran officers who had survived wars felt uncertainty creeping into their thoughts. The Grand Admiral slowly looked toward the human vessel outside the viewport. "Send another team," one commander suggested quietly. The Admiral did not answer immediately. Pride and caution struggled within him. Losing soldiers without battle was unacceptable, yet retreating from a single vessel was worse. Finally he spoke. Deploy autonomous probes. No living crew. Dozens of small drones launched from nearby cruisers and approached the human ship. They passed through the airlock opening and transmitted live visual feed. The command deck watched closely. The interior corridor appeared normal at first. Smooth metallic walls. Soft white lighting. But the probe's distance counter began increasing rapidly, even though the camera showed slow movement. The corridor length is expanding, the science officer said. The probe continued forward. Then another corridor crossed it, but according to exterior scans, that direction led outside the ship's hull. The drone turned back. The entrance behind it was gone. Only more hallway existed. Suddenly, the video feed split into 3 identical images, each showing the probe moving in a different direction. The navigation system insisted it was traveling straight. Then the drone detected movement ahead. A figure stood at the end of the hall. Imperial armor. One of the lost soldiers. The probe approached. The figure did not move. Its helmet slowly turned toward the camera. The face inside was older, pale, and unmoving. The life sign reader showed 0 biological activity. The corpse opened its mouth and spoke in a voice that did not belong to any living being. Containment integrity declining. Every officer froze. The probe feed distorted and cut instantly. All drones went offline at the same moment. No explosion. No damage signal. They simply stopped existing. Before the Admiral could issue another order, the communication screen activated by itself. Captain Elias Ward appeared again, still calm, still seated, still holding the metal cup. His eyes showed quiet disappointment rather than anger. "I asked you not to board," he said gently. The Admiral's voice carried tension now. "What have you done to my soldiers?" The captain shook his head slightly. "I have done nothing to them. The vessel reacted on its own." "Then control it," the Admiral demanded. For the first time, the human hesitated before answering. "It cannot be controlled. Only guided." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "You are inside it," the Admiral said sharply. "Explain what this ship is." The human looked directly into the camera, his calm expression hiding something deeper. "You believe you encountered a visitor," he said quietly. "But you encountered a boundary." The Admiral's patience thinned. "Speak clearly, human." Captain Ward set his cup down beside him. "This craft was not built to travel," he said. "It was built to keep something from traveling." The words hung in the air like a shadow. Outside the viewport, the lone ship drifted in perfect silence, surrounded by an entire Imperial war fleet that suddenly felt very small. For several moments after the human finished speaking, no one on the Imperial flagship moved. The Grand Admiral stood with his hands behind his back, eyes locked on the image of Captain Elias Ward. The words echoed in his thoughts, a boundary built to keep something from traveling. He did not like the meaning behind them. Empires understood enemies, weapons, and territory. They did not understand mysteries. "You will explain immediately," the Admiral said, his voice low and controlled. The human captain remained calm in his chair. The quiet bridge behind him still showed no crew members, no movement, no sign of normal ship activity. Only soft white light filled the background. "I came to explain," Ward replied. "But your fleet reacted faster than your curiosity." The Admiral ignored the remark. "Our soldiers have vanished inside your vessel. Our probes have ceased functioning. You have entered our space without permission. Give a reason why we should not destroy you." Around the human ship, hundreds of Imperial weapons slowly adjusted aim, preparing for a concentrated strike. The glow of charging cannons reflected across the hull of the lone craft. The human looked at the display for a second, then back at the Admiral. "Because destroying the ship will not destroy what it contains." The words spread unease across the command deck. The science commander stepped closer to the Admiral and whispered, "His energy readings are still impossible to measure. They fluctuate beyond our sensor limits." The Admiral kept his eyes forward. "You speak in riddles," he told the human. "State your purpose." Captain Ward folded his hands together. "Earth did not send a fleet because a fleet would look like an attack. We sent one vessel because this is not a war mission. Then it is a diplomatic mission? The Admiral asked. No, Ward answered quietly. It is a containment mission. The word carried weight. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. The Admiral narrowed his eyes. Containment of what? The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked slightly to his side, as if listening to something distant. For a moment, his calm expression tightened, then returned to normal. Your boarding teams caused internal disturbance, he said. The vessel is adjusting. The tactical officer suddenly spoke, voice tense. Energy spike detected from inside the ship. All screens turned toward the readings. A deep pulse radiated from the human vessel, not outward like a weapon, but inward, bending the nearby star's light slightly before fading. The fleet held position. No damage occurred, yet every system registered interference. The Admiral felt a strange pressure in the air, though he knew it was only his mind reacting. What is adjusting? He demanded. The human looked directly into the camera. The prison. Silence fell heavier than before. You expect us to believe, the Admiral said slowly, that you have brought a prison into Imperial territory. No, Ward replied. I brought the prison near your territory because something here woke it. Confusion replaced anger on several faces. The science commander quickly checked stellar charts. No unusual cosmic activity recorded in this sector, she said. Nothing large enough to affect. She stopped speaking. New data appeared on her screen. A faint pattern of energy pulses stretched across nearby star systems, extremely weak, but repeating at regular intervals. She showed it to the Admiral. The human watched their reaction patiently. You detected it, he said. Your expansion disturbed a signal older than your civilization. The Admiral's voice grew colder. You're saying our presence triggered whatever you are containing. Yes, the captain answered simply. And if it wakes fully, your empire will not matter anymore. The tactical officer stepped forward. Permission to fire warning volley, he said. The Admiral hesitated. Pride demanded control of the situation. Fear advised caution. He chose a middle path. Charge weapons, but hold fire. The fleet's weapons brightened again, illuminating the darkness. Captain Ward sighed softly. Your species believes power solves uncertainty, he said. Many species believe the same. Explain, the Admiral ordered. The human leaned back slightly in his chair. Long before humanity discovered faster-than-light travel, ruins existed on dead worlds near our system. We studied them. They described travelers who did not move through space, but folded it around themselves. Civilizations vanished after encountering them. The officers listened despite themselves. We found one, Ward continued, drifting beyond our outer planets. Not alive, not dead, waiting. The Admiral felt irritation. And humans captured this being? The human shook his head. No one can capture it. We build a cage around where it exists. The science commander whispered, a dimensional anchor. The human gave a small nod. Your words are close enough. Another tremor passed through the human vessel, weaker this time. The lights on the Imperial flagship flickered for a fraction of a second. Officers looked around uneasily. Your boarding teams moved too far inside, Ward said. The interior does not follow normal distance. The cage shifts to keep the occupants centered. The Admiral's voice lowered. Am I soldiers? The human paused before answering. They're not dead, but they're no longer where time flows normally. No one spoke after that. The meaning was worse than death. The Admiral straightened. You entered our territory carrying a danger capable of destroying civilizations, and you did not warn us. The captain's eyes hardened slightly for the first time. We tried. You fired. The Admiral opened his mouth to respond, but another officer interrupted. Sir, the pulse pattern is increasing. All attention snapped back to the sensors. The faint repeating signal beyond the system had grown stronger. The human watched their reactions quietly. Now you understand why only one ship came, he said. A fleet cannot escort a prison. It can only provoke it. The Admiral stared at the small vessel outside, surrounded by thousands of warships that suddenly felt meaningless. For the first time, he wondered if the human presence was not a threat, but a warning that had arrived too late. The repeating pulse continued to grow stronger. It was still faint, but now every sensor in the Imperial fleet could detect it. It was not coming from the human ship. It was coming from deep space beyond the outer stars of the system. The pattern was steady and slow, like a heartbeat echoing through the dark. On the flagship, officers worked quickly, comparing data from long-range observatories and deep space probes. The results were disturbing. The signal did not match any known natural phenomenon. It did not behave like a star, a black hole, or a nebula. It behaved like something aware. The Grand Admiral kept his focus on Captain Elias Ward. "You claim this signal is connected to what you carry," he said. The human nodded once. "Yes, it is responding." The Admiral felt a tight pressure in his chest. Responding to what? Ward's answer was simple. To being noticed. Silence returned to the command deck. The idea was difficult to accept. The Empire had expanded for centuries. They had mapped thousands of systems. They believed they understood the structure of the galaxy. Now a single human ship suggested there was something older, something hidden, that reacted to attention itself. The science commander stepped forward. "We are analyzing historical data," she said. "There are small gaps in our records. Entire outposts that stopped reporting generations ago. We believe they were destroyed by natural disasters or unknown enemies." She hesitated before continuing. "The pattern of disappearance aligns with the direction of this signal." A low murmur spread across the officers. The Admiral's voice grew sharper. "Are you saying this thing has been moving through our territory for centuries?" "Not moving," Captain Ward corrected gently. "Observing." The word felt heavier than before. Outside the viewport, the lone human ship seemed unchanged. But subtle distortions shimmered around its hull, bending distant starlight in small waves. It was almost beautiful if one ignored the fear attached to it. "Explain the ship," the Admiral demanded. "Fully." Ward took a slow breath. "What you see as a ship is only the outer shell. The interior is not limited by three-dimensional space. It is layered, anchored, folded inward." The science commander's eyes widened slightly. "A spatial compression lattice," she whispered. "More than that," Ward replied. "The interior is built around a fixed coordinate in higher dimensional space. The entity exists at that coordinate. The structure you boarded adjusts to keep that coordinate stable." The Admiral frowned. "So, when my soldiers entered, they stepped into a region where distance is flexible and time is uneven," Ward finished quietly. "The vessel protects the center by confusing anything that approaches it." The Admiral struggled to control his anger. "You speak as if this thing is alive." The human did not answer immediately. His gaze shifted slightly again, as if listening to something distant. "It is not alive in the way we understand life," he finally said. "But it is not empty either." The pulse outside the system grew stronger again. This time, several ships in the fleet reported temporary navigation errors. Star maps flickered. Coordinates shifted by small fractions before correcting. Nothing catastrophic happened, but the effect was noticeable. "The signal is increasing in frequency," the science commander reported. "It is synchronizing with the energy fluctuations inside the human vessel." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "You brought it here," he said. Ward shook his head. "No, it was already close. We followed it." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. "Your expansion toward this sector drew its attention," Ward continued. "When multiple civilizations grow quickly in one region, it reacts." "Reacts how?" the Admiral asked. The human's voice remained calm, but his words carried weight. "By reducing complexity." Confusion appeared across the bridge. Ward explained, "It does not wage war. It does not conquer. It simplifies. Stars destabilize. Technology fails. Minds become disordered. Civilizations collapse quietly." A cold silence filled the room. The Empire had seen war. They had seen destruction. But this was different. This was erasure without battle. "And humanity faced this alone?" the Admiral asked. "Yes," Ward answered. "We detected it before we understood it. We lost colonies. We lost ships. Then we learned to observe it without attracting it." The admiral folded his arms. And you built this prison. We built a boundary, Ward corrected. A moving anchor that keeps it centered and contained within a fixed region of folded space. The science commander studied new data streaming across her screen. The distortions around your vessel are growing stronger, she said. The interior mass readings are increasing. Ward's calm expression shifted slightly. For the first time, real concern appeared in his eyes. Your fleet's presence is accelerating the interaction, he said. So many active reactors, so many active minds. It senses patterns. The admiral looked out at his massive fleet. Thousands of ships, each powered by advanced reactors, each filled with thinking beings. Strength had always been the Empire's greatest symbol. Now it might be the very thing drawing danger closer. If we withdraw, the admiral asked carefully, will it calm? Ward considered the question. It may reduce the response, but the pulse has already grown stronger than expected. As if answering his words, another wave passed through the system. This time, several nearby stars flickered briefly, dimming by a tiny fraction before returning to normal brightness. The effect lasted less than a second, but it was enough. Officers stared at their readings in disbelief. That is impossible, someone whispered. The admiral felt the balance of power shifting in a way he had never experienced. He was no longer deciding how to defeat an enemy. He was deciding how to survive something beyond conventional understanding. He looked back at Captain Ward. Why come here at all? He asked. Why not stay within your own territory? The human answered without hesitation. Because if it grows strong enough, territory will not matter. We came to reinforce the boundary before it stabilizes near your core systems. The admiral slowly realized the truth behind the human's earlier words. Earth had not sent one ship as a symbol of weakness. They had sent one ship because only one was needed. A fleet would not help. A fleet would only feed the thing reacting in the dark. Outside, the pulse echoed again across the stars, stronger than before. And for the first time in its long history, the Galactic Empire understood that its greatest weapon, its massive presence, might be the very thing pushing the unknown closer to awakening. The next pulse did not remain distant. It rolled through the system like a silent wave. No sound reached the ships, yet every sensor reacted at once. Readings spiked, vanished, then returned with small errors. Timestamps shifted by fractions of seconds before correcting themselves. On the Imperial flagship, several officers grabbed their consoles as if the deck had moved beneath their feet, even though nothing physically changed. The science commander stared at her display in disbelief. Local time drift detected across multiple ships, she reported. Clocks are no longer synchronized. The Grand Admiral looked toward the human image. You said it was waking. Captain Elias Ward nodded slowly. Yes. Your fleet's concentration has given it a reference point. It now knows where to look. Before the admiral could answer, a nearby cruiser transmitted an urgent message. Its captain's voice sounded strained. Flagship, our forward observation deck reports duplicate star positions. We are seeing the same star in two locations. The science commander checked long-range optics. For a moment, she saw it too. One distant star appeared slightly beside itself, like a reflection in moving water. Then the image returned to normal. Visual distortion confirmed, she said quietly. Ward closed his eyes for a brief second, then opened them again. It is extending awareness beyond the boundary. The admiral's patience finally broke through his discipline. Then strengthen your containment immediately. The human shook his head. Containment is passive. It holds when reality is stable. Your ships are disturbing stability. As if to prove his point, another report arrived. A destroyer at the outer edge of the formation sent a panic transmission. Our crew is hearing voices repeating our own commands before we speak them. The transmission cut and resumed several times. We request permission to withdraw from formation. The admiral hesitated. Withdrawal meant losing tactical control, yet remaining might worsen the situation. Before he gave the order, the human spoke first. Pull your ships back, Ward said calmly. Distance reduces interaction. The admiral glanced at his officers. Pride still resisted the idea of obeying a single human, but the reports were undeniable. Outer wings, retreat 1,000 kilometers, he ordered. Engines ignited across the fleet. Lines of warships slowly drifted backward, maintaining formation but increasing distance from the human vessel. For a moment, the system stabilized. The star distortions faded. The time drift lessened. Several officers released breaths they did not realize they held. Then the pulse returned stronger than before. Lights dimmed across multiple bridges at the same instant. Not power failure. The stars themselves darkened slightly again. The science commander whispered, "It is not reacting to distance anymore." Ward's expression tightened. "Because it has recognized observers. Retreat alone will not stop the focus now." The admiral stared at him. "Then what will?" The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked off-screen again, listening to something only he could hear. A faint tremor passed through his ship. The smooth walls behind him rippled like water for a fraction of a second. For the first time, a low tone echoed faintly through the communication channel, not from the fleet, but from inside the human vessel itself. The tone was deep and steady, like a distant bell. Every being who heard it felt uneasy without understanding why. "Containment integrity decreasing," Ward said quietly. The science commander quickly scanned the ship again. "Your vessel's mass is increasing rapidly. Internal energy levels rising beyond previous limits." The admiral felt cold realization. The prison is failing. Ward nodded once. Not failing, straining. Another wave spread across space. This time the flagship's main display flickered, briefly showing a different star map, one with unfamiliar constellations, before returning to normal. Several officers stepped back in alarm. "Did anyone else see that?" one asked. The admiral ignored the question. His eyes stayed fixed on the human. "Explain what happens if the strain continues." Ward spoke plainly. "The boundary will open. Not violently. Quietly. The entity will no longer be centered. It will expand perception into normal space." "And then?" the admiral asked. The human answered with calm certainty. "Your ships will lose structure first. Not explode. Simply fail to remain defined objects. Then your stations. Then your planets." Silence filled the bridge. The Empire had faced enemies capable of destroying worlds, but always through force. This was different. This was existence itself becoming uncertain. A junior officer suddenly pointed at a sensor screen. Multiple faint shapes appearing near the vessel. External cameras magnified the area around the human ship. For a second, nothing unusual appeared. Then thin shadows flickered around it, like reflections moving across invisible glass. They did not block light, they bent it. Ward watched them too. "It is pressing against the boundary," he said. The admiral clenched his hands behind his back. "You came to stop this. Do it." The human's gaze returned to the camera. "I can reinforce the anchor, but your fleet must cease all aggressive targeting. Weapon locks create attention patterns." The admiral gave the order immediately. Across the fleet, thousands of targeting systems powered down. The glow of charge cannons faded. The space around the lone ship grew darker and calmer. For a moment, the shadows weakened. The tone from the vessel softened slightly. The science commander monitored the readings. "Energy rise slowing," she reported hopefully. Then another fluctuation struck, sharper than before. One of the nearby escort ships vanished from sensors for half a second, then reappeared in the same position. Its crew sent frantic confirmation signals that they had experienced a complete blackout of perception. Ward looked at the admiral, and this time his calm voice carried urgency. "It is adapting. The boundary alone is no longer enough." The admiral's voice dropped. "Then why did Earth send only one ship?" The human answered quietly, his eyes steady. "Because only one mind can stay inside the center long enough to guide the anchor." He paused briefly. "And that mind must remain here." The meaning settled heavily across the command deck. Outside the viewport, the lone vessel glowed faintly as another deep tone echoed from within it, longer and heavier than before. The prison was no longer merely holding something back. It was being tested from the inside. The deep tone from a human vessel continued, longer now, almost rhythmic. It did not vibrate the hulls of the Imperial ships, yet every living being felt it inside their thoughts. Conversation slowed. Movements became careful, as if the mind needed extra effort to decide each action. On the flagship, the Grand Admiral forced himself to remain focused. "You said one mind must guide the anchor," he told Captain Elias Ward. "Explain clearly." The human nodded once. The calm in his expression had not vanished, but it now carried visible strain. "The boundary is not a wall," he said. "It is a balance point. The entity exists outside normal space. The ship keeps a coordinate stable so it does not spread into our reality. To maintain that coordinate, someone must remain aware of it at all times." The science commander frowned. "You mean observation keeps it fixed?" "Partly," Ward replied. "Not simple observation. Structured awareness. The anchor responds to a conscious pattern. A trained mind provides that pattern." The Admiral understood slowly. "You are connected to the prison." Ward did not deny it. "Every captain assigned to this vessel is trained for years. We learn how to hold a single concept steady without interruption." The Admiral studied the human more carefully. The quiet bridge behind him suddenly felt less empty and more lonely. "And if your concentration fails?" The human answered honestly. "Then the coordinate drifts." As if the universe wished to demonstrate the danger, another wave passed through the fleet. This time it was stronger. Several ships reported that interior corridors briefly stretched longer than their physical length. A crew member walked toward a door and needed 20 steps instead of 10 before reaching it. The effect lasted only seconds, but left the crew shaken. "Spatial instability increasing," the science commander reported. Ward closed his eyes briefly, focusing. The faint shadows around his ship pulled inward slightly. The tone softened. Sweat formed along his forehead, though his voice remained steady. "I am stabilizing the center," he said quietly. The Admiral spoke more carefully now. "Humans discovered this entity first?" Ward nodded. "We found traces in ancient ruins long before we understood them. Entire civilizations left records of a presence that watched but did not speak. Their technology failed over generations until nothing remained. And you decided to contain it instead of fleeing," the Admiral said. The human opened his eyes. "Running only delays observation. Eventually, every expanding species reaches its attention. We chose responsibility." The words carried no pride, only simple acceptance. The science commander asked, "How did you trap something outside space?" Ward gave a faint, tired smile. "We did not trap it. We anchored ourselves around it." He continued, "We built a structure where space loops inward. The entity's position remains centered relative to the anchor. As long as the anchor holds, it cannot extend further." The Admiral considered the idea. "So this ship travels to follow it?" "Yes," Ward said. "It drifts slowly through the galaxy. We move with it, so the boundary always surrounds the same point." Another officer looked alarmed at a new reading. "The external pole source has moved closer by several million kilometers." The Admiral's eyes widened. "It is approaching the system." Ward's voice lowered. "Not approaching, aligning." The stars beyond the fleet dimmed slightly again, but this time the darkness lingered longer. Some officers rubbed their eyes, certain their vision was failing. The Admiral felt a faint pressure behind his thoughts, like trying to remember something he had never learned. Ward inhaled slowly and spoke with effort. "Your species' attention accelerated its focus. Many minds observing the same point increases definition for it." The Admiral immediately understood. "Our fleet is helping it see you." "Yes," Ward answered simply. A heavy silence filled the bridge. For the first time, the Admiral turned away from the human and looked at his officers not as subordinates, but as lives under his care. "All ships, reduce active scanning to minimum," he ordered. "Limit communications to essential signals only." Across the formation, countless systems powered down. The surrounding space grew quieter. The shadows around the human ship weakened slightly. Ward exhaled slowly, relief visible for a moment. "That helps," he said. Then the tone from the vessel deepened again, stronger than before. The human flinched slightly, gripping the arms of his chair. The science commander stared at the readings. Internal mass spike detected again, much higher than previous levels. Ward's breathing steadied as he concentrated. It is testing the boundary's edge. The Admiral's voice softened, losing its command tone. How long can you hold it? The human answered truthfully. As long as my mind remains clear. Another officer spoke nervously. And if you lose consciousness? Ward looked directly into the camera. Then the boundary loses guidance. The meaning was obvious. No backup crew. No replacement pilot. Only one mind stood between reality and collapse. The Admiral slowly understood the real reason Earth had sent a single vessel. Not because one ship was enough firepower. Because only one focused awareness could safely remain near the center. More minds would disturb the balance. You came alone because help would make it worse, he said quietly. Ward gave a faint nod. Yes. Outside, the stars dimmed once more, and this time a thin ripple crossed space itself, visible even to the naked eye like a wave moving across glass. The tone from the human ship became heavy and continuous. The captain straightened in his chair, forcing steady breathing as he held his thoughts fixed on something no one else could perceive. The Admiral watched in silence, realizing that the fate of entire civilizations now depended not on fleets or weapons, but on the endurance of a single human mind holding the universe in place. The ripple across space did not fade this time. It lingered, stretching slowly outward from the human vessel like a silent tide moving through the stars. No explosion followed, no visible force, yet every sensor aboard the Imperial fleet struggled to keep stable readings. Distance markers shifted by tiny amounts. A nearby frigate reported that its own shadow appeared in the wrong direction for several seconds before correcting. The Grand Admiral stood motionless, watching Captain Elias Ward. The human's hands gripped the sides of his chair. His breathing was controlled but heavier than before. Sweat traced down his temple, yet his eyes remained focused on a point no one else could see. The deep tone echoing through space grew thicker, almost layered, as if more than one sound existed within it. The science commander whispered, "The boundary is thinning." Ward spoke without moving his gaze. "It is pressing harder." Another wave crossed the fleet. This time the effect was undeniable. One of the outer destroyers faded partially from view, becoming transparent for half a second before returning. Its crew transmitted panic, insisting they could see stars through their own floor during the distortion. The Admiral issued steady orders to keep formation calm, but his voice no longer carried the certainty it once had. "What does it want?" he asked quietly. Ward answered slowly. "Not want. Notice. It does not think as we do. Awareness is enough." The Admiral clenched his hands behind his back. "Can it be moved away from our systems?" The human finally looked directly at him. "Yes." The Admiral felt hope rise briefly. "Ow!" Ward hesitated for the first time. The tone deepened again, and the walls behind him rippled faintly like disturbed water. "The anchor can be repositioned," he said, "but only from inside the center." The science commander understood immediately. "You mean the ship must carry it somewhere else?" Ward nodded once. "Into a region where no civilization exists. A place without observers." The Admiral realized the implication. "You will jump the vessel away." "Not a normal jump," Ward replied. "A descent into a star's gravity well. The distortion will hide the coordinate long enough to reset its awareness." Several officers reacted in shock. No ship could survive such a maneuver. The Admiral's voice lowered. "That would destroy you." The human gave a faint, calm smile. "Yes." Silence consumed the command deck. For the first time since the encounter began, the Admiral felt something unfamiliar, respect mixed with dread. "Can another pilot relieve you before that?" he asked. Ward shook his head. Another mind entering the center now would strengthen its focus. "It must remain only me." Outside the viewport, the ripple expanded again. One of the distant stars bent visibly for a moment, its light curving slightly around empty space near the human vessel. The science commander stared in disbelief. Gravitational distortion without mass. The tone grew louder. Several officers covered their ears, even though no physical sound existed. It was inside their thoughts, pressing gently but persistently. Ward closed his eyes briefly, forcing concentration. "It is becoming aware of you," he said softly. The Admiral acted immediately. All ships prepared to retreat from the system. Engines across the massive fleet powered up. For the first time in Imperial history, a full battle formation withdrew without firing a shot. The ships moved back slowly, maintaining order while increasing distance from the lone vessel. As they retreated, the pressure in the air lessened slightly. The ripple weakened, but did not vanish. The entity's focus remained centered on the anchor and the human guiding it. The Admiral watched the distance grow on his display. "We are leaving," he told Ward. "Your path will be clear." The human nodded gratefully, but kept his focus steady. "Once I begin the descent, you must not follow." The Admiral understood. Observers would undo the attempt. "We will hold position outside the system." Another distortion crossed the ship. This time the human flinched sharply, gripping the chair harder. The tone surged, then steadied. He inhaled slowly and spoke with effort. "I am initiating movement." On external sensors, the small vessel finally activated its engines. Not bright, not violent, just a gentle shift forward toward the nearest star. Against the scale of the fleet, it looked impossibly fragile. The Admiral felt the weight of what he was witnessing. Empires fought wars for survival. But this single individual was choosing certainty of death for beings he had never met. "Human," the Admiral said, abandoning formality. "Your people knew this mission would end this way." Ward's eyes softened slightly. "Every captain knows." The ship continued its slow path toward the burning star ahead. The surrounding distortions stretched along with it, like invisible chains pulling tight. The Admiral spoke once more. "Your species protects even those who threatened you." Ward's voice came quieter now as concentration consumed him. "Responsibility does not depend on friendship." The star's light grew brighter across the human ship's hull. The ripple in space narrowed, following it. The fleet watched in complete silence. For the first time, thousands of Imperial soldiers hoped a single fragile vessel would succeed. The human vessel moved closer to the star, and the tone within every mind rose to its strongest point yet. Ward's final transmission reached the fleet, steady despite the strain. "Do not remember this place too clearly," he said softly. "That will help more than you know." The Admiral did not understand the meaning, but he nodded anyway. The ship crossed the outer edge of the star's blazing corona. Light swallowed its outline. The ripple tightened around it like a closing circle. And still, the human mind inside held steady as the boundary and the prisoner within were carried together into the fire. The star swallowed the vessel gradually, a brilliant glare spreading across the system. From the fleet's view, the human ship shrank, its outline flickering and bending light in ways no normal craft could. Every sensor aboard the Imperial fleet went into overload trying to track it, yet it seemed to vanish even as it moved. A deep, resonant tone echoed faintly across the fleet, not from the ship itself, but inside the minds of those watching. Officers pressed their hands to their heads, trying to steady their thoughts, but the feeling persisted: weight, presence, and awareness that did not belong to any known being. On the bridge of the flagship, the Grand Admiral stood silent. He had faced enemies capable of crushing entire worlds. He had commanded fleets through countless battles. Yet here he felt powerless, insignificant. The human image remained on the communication screen, even as the ship disappeared from sight. Captain Elias Ward's voice was calm, almost serene. "The anchor is holding," he said softly. "The entity remains centered. Its awareness is contained." The science commander checked the external readings. "Visual and energy signatures fading rapidly," she reported. "The star has absorbed the ship, but the internal structure is intact. The anchor is stable." The Admiral let out a slow breath he had not realized he was holding. "You saved the system," he said quietly. Ward shook his head slightly. I did not save it. I reverted to balance. The tone that had pressed through minds for so long softened, retreating gradually. The strange distortions across the fleet's sensors eased. Stars appeared normal. Time flowed steadily again. The Admiral's officers looked around at each other, astonished. For a moment, nothing moved except the faint residual hum in the minds of the fleet. Then Ward spoke, a faint smile crossing his face. One ship is enough. Several officers tilted their heads, unsure what he meant. Why only one? The Admiral asked. Ward's voice carried weight, even across the silent connection. Because we do not send weapons. We send guardians. The words hung heavy in the room. A sense of humility passed over every officer. Weapons, fleets, dominance. None of it mattered against the vast, unknowable forces in the galaxy. Only care, responsibility, and focus could preserve stability. A distant calm officer muttered, "We watched a star swallow a ship and lived." Ward continued quietly, his eyes softening. The galaxy is fragile. Its life is not ours to destroy. The anchor reminds us of that. On external scanners, the human vessel could no longer be seen. The star's brightness had returned to normal, but the faint traces of energy lingered, like footprints in sand. Slowly, communication lines to the human ship closed, leaving only the memory of its presence. The Admiral remained standing, staring at the viewport. For the first time in his long career, he felt that the galaxy held mysteries too vast for command protocols or weaponry. He turned to his science officer. "Document everything," he ordered. "Future generations must know what humanity is capable of." She nodded, her face pale but resolute. Ward's voice came one last time across the channel. "Remember," he said softly, "humanity travels alone because it carries everyone's safety." Then the screen went dark. The fleet was silent for several minutes, each officer processing the events in their own way. The Grand Admiral finally spoke, voice heavy. "Prepare a report for the Emperor. Humanity is not a threat. It is a responsibility we do not understand." Outside, the stars seemed sharper, brighter, as if reality itself had exhaled after the tension. The Admiral realized that the Empire's greatest power, their fleets, could never measure up to the quiet strength of a single human mind. Weeks later, recovered transmissions told the story in fragments. Boarding teams who had vanished inside the vessel had experienced time differently, perceiving years in moments. Probes had returned broken or incomprehensible data. Observers described visions of other stars, other civilizations, and the faint weight of something ancient pressing against consciousness. The Emperor's court debated what to do, but even they understood the warning. The humans had proven a lesson. Strength was not measured in fleets or firepower. It was measured in responsibility and endurance. Across the galaxy, Imperial fleets adjusted their policy. Expansion slowed near sectors where humanity had presence. The Empire declared them protectors rather than conquerors. And somewhere, in the distant void where the human vessel had disappeared into the star, the anchor remained. It held the entity steady, keeping the fragile balance of the galaxy intact. Captain Elias Ward had completed his mission. He had not fought, destroyed, or conquered. He had guided, endured, and sacrificed. Humanity had sent only one ship because only one mind could carry the burden of guarding a galaxy from a force beyond comprehension. And so, in Imperial records and whispered accounts across countless star systems, one lesson was written clearly: never underestimate a single human. One mind, one ship, one responsibility. That was enough to remind the galaxy that humanity's power was not in numbers, weapons, or fleets, but in courage, focus, and unwavering guardianship. The stars returned to normal. Space was quiet again, but every officer, every observer, would forever carry the memory of the day one small vessel held the weight of the galaxy in its hands. And the Empire, for the first time, understood that humans do not need a fleet to change the course of history.